Welcome, everyone. Thank you for calling in. This is our first video conference meeting, so it should be interesting. I assume that everyone has the agenda and has read it accordingly. We just talked about the protocol as far as raising your hand. I assume, unless you need to speak, you can mute your mics. Pardon me. But it looks like it's going to be fairly simple to recognize people whenever they raise their hand. So as we get started, Anna, can you give us the roll call?
Yes, sir. Scott McDonald,
Present.
William Dub Smith is absent. Edward Martin,
Present.
Stephen Shang,
Present.
Marcella Rhodes,
Present.
okay. Janet Hoffman is absent. Suzanne Arnold,
Present.
Benoit Curran,
Present.
Otis Jones Jr.,
Present.
Edwin Scooter Lofton Jr.,
Present.
Johnny Scholl, and Roland Brown, presiding officer.
I am here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Very good. If we can get started with with Mary Winston talking about advisory board member training, your item number C on the agenda. Mary, go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first meeting of this group via this platform. This meeting is being conducted by video conference. The public is watching via live stream, and persons who signed up to make public comment will have a chance to do so later in the meeting. I don't believe we have any public comment for today. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available on YouTube. Here are some tips to make sure that you have a successful meeting. Keep your microphone muted until you'd like to speak. It cuts down on the background noise. Please put all phones on silent and turn off any other sources of noise in your workspace. If at all possible, limit your fidgeting or moving around. I always share that I'm a hand talker and I'm fidgeting. Well, that's kind of distracting. And when you have all these little boxes, sort of Brady Bunch style in front of the screen, you'll call more attention to yourself than to the actual speaker. Please state your name before you begin to speak. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. There is a raise hand feature on this platform. However, presiding officer has a meeting to run. Everyone in the office and working behind the scenes, we all have other duties that we're trying to attend to. Therefore, we're just doing it elementary school style. Raise your hand, state your name, and begin speaking. Wait for the presiding officer to acknowledge you. Any votes that will be taken during this meeting, we'll use roll call votes. There's not going to be Anna will handle that. So this is a little different than what we do when we're all present. But just as we did when we were taking roll, Anna will call the name, you'll unmute, you'll speak, and then remute. If any problems connected during the meeting, try to let the presiding officer know. Again, a raised hand. Sometimes we can see by the feed that there are connectivity problems. We have staff working in the office to assist you with those issues. Stay on camera during the meeting, even if you're not speaking. And if you need a recess, raise your hand. Let the presiding officer know, and I'm sure he'll oblige the request. If you get inadvertently disconnected from the meeting, simply rejoin the meeting using the same link that you used to initially join. Though this is the first meeting of this body using this platform, we have conducted several, and we've had some blips. We've taken a few recesses, we've lost some connectivity, but we always get things back up and running. No worries, we deal with each issue in real time as it comes upon us, and we take a small recess if we need to. These things are anticipated, they're okay, and we adjust every time. We're going to go through our agenda items and take care of everything we need to act on today. Again, I want to thank you all for attending and look forward to this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Roland Brown.
Thank you, ma'am. At this point in time, we would like to move on to item D, open meetings training with Molly Fudel. Molly?
Good afternoon, Council and Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, so I'm going to turn down my microphone as well. All right. So there should be a PowerPoint presentation on the screen right now that y'all are able to see.
Could that be, this is Scott McDonald. Could you put that into full view mode, please?
Yeah, yes, sir. I apologize. I'm trying to do that right now.
No worries. Thank you.
There we go. That should be better. Okay, thank you so much for your patience. So I'm going to go through this training. We're going to cover the Open Meetings Act, the Administrative Procedure Act, you might hear us refer to that as the APA, and the Public Information Act, which is open records. So as you all already know, you have the mandatory training videos that you do through the Office of the Attorney General that cover the Open Meetings Act and open records. The deadline is 90 days after taking your oath of office, and you must provide the training certificate to the advisory board staff. If you've already done that, thank you so much. If not, just go ahead and do that at your earliest convenience. So since you are already familiar with these, I'm going to give just a brief overview, kind of as a refresher for some and a preview for everybody else who hasn't been able to do the videos yet. So starting with the Open Meetings Act, the purpose is to ensure open and transparent government, and it requires meetings of governmental bodies like you, the council, to be open to the public and to be preceded by public notice. So that's the agenda that we post. And of course, the act is mandatory and it's liberally construed in favor of open government. So what does this mean for you? What it means for you is 7 or more council members, that quorum, may not discuss council business or receive information from somebody else about council business or take a vote unless the public has been given notice of the meeting and the meeting's open to the public. So normally we would do this over at North Campus. Now in the new world that we're living in, we're doing it virtually, and the public has an opportunity to watch us on YouTube right now. And the Open Meetings Act also requires that discussion be limited to what is on the agenda. So you've probably heard about a walking quorum. A walking quorum is when fewer than a quorum of members discuss official business and then communicate those discussions to other members so that a total number of people who have discussed the topic is a quorum. So these discussions might not all be at the same time, but they all add up to where a quorum, so 7 or more of you, have discussed the same thing. And this is a violation of the Open Meetings Act, so we want to avoid it. So some best practices with the Open Meetings: avoid the walking quorum. One way to do that is to not discuss council business with others on the council and then talk about that to other people. And that could be via text, email, hallway discussions if we're at North Campus, and even social media posts. If you post something about council business, saying, I really think we should change this in the rules, and then 6 or more people who are on the council see that, that's technically a walking quorum because 7 or more people have communicated about an issue outside of an open meeting. Another tip is to discuss the items on the agenda only, and we'll be listening to make sure that the conversation doesn't wander far from the agenda. If you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, just propose putting it on the agenda for the next meeting. We can do that. And during public comment, don't respond or ask follow-up questions for items that are not on the agenda. So of course, a mandatory act has some penalties for violating it. Somebody can go to court and get a vote or other action that was taken in violation of the Open Meetings Act, get that reversed. Also on the criminal side, violating the Open Meetings Act is a misdemeanor, and there are potential fines and jail time associated with it. So we've got some resources for you here. Of course, the open meetings video on the Attorney General's website and handbook. And you'll see at the bottom is our phone number at the General Counsel's office. Feel free to call us anytime. Moving on to the Administrative Procedure Act. This is really, it comes into place when we're talking about rulemaking. So the purpose is to provide for public participation and transparency during that rulemaking process. And we're talking about not just making new rules, but amending the rules that are already there. And your rules, the IHB rules, are located in Chapter 70. So sources for rulemaking ideas can come from anywhere, really. Legislative changes, the bill implementation we did recently. You might have ideas, staff. We've also got the 4-year rule review that I'll talk about a little bit later, and also a rule petition. That's where anybody in Texas, a business, an individual, local government could ask for a rule to be enacted. So here we've got a flow chart with the rulemaking process. It's a long process, so I'm going to give just a brief overview. But the idea starts, and we start by drafting the rule. Then there's internal review, and it also goes to the governor's office for input. We bring it to you at the first council meeting, and you look at the rules and you recommend publishing or not in the Texas Register. Once that gets published, then the public has 30 days to send in their comments. We review those public comments here and we forward them to you for your consideration at your second meeting. And at your second meeting, you review the comments and the rules, and then you vote to make a recommendation to the commission. The commission then votes and adopts the rules. That adoption notice is filed with the Texas Register again, and the rules become effective at least 20 days after that. So you don't have to remember all this. That's why staff is here. It's just to give you an idea of the process. There's also the 4-year rule review process. So every 4 years, we look at our rules this is for every program, and every state agency is supposed to do this. And we look and see if there are any changes that need to be made and if they need to be readopted. So we publish a notice of an intent to review the rules in the Texas Register, a lot like we do for the regular rulemaking process. The public is given 30 days to give us their input. We review those comments and we send them to the commission for a vote. The commission votes to readopt the rules. Generally, they get readopted if the statute is still there, because there's still a need for the rules to be there. And then the comments that we get are forwarded to you, and staff also reviews them, and we think about any changes that we want to make. Here are more resources for you, again, with the Attorney General's website and a few more websites on there. So Open Records, or Public Information Act, it's intended to allow information about the government to be accessible to the public. So it makes all documents, records, information, so like even data, is open to the public with some exceptions. And it includes electronic communications, so emails and text messages, even if they're on a phone or a tablet that's not owned by TDLR. If it's about official business, then it is subject to the Public Information Act. And the act is, like the Open Meetings Act, construed liberally in favor of granting requests for information. So the general rule is that everything is open, is public. But there are exceptions. There are lots of exceptions, and there are certain things that we have to withhold just for privacy's sake. So, for example, a date of birth, some email addresses, educational documents, medical records for obvious reasons. So if you ever receive a written request that to you looks like a request for records, please go ahead and forward that to us. You can forward it to the Open Records email address, or to the advisory board team, and they'll get it to the right person, because we want to make sure that we get started on that as soon as we can. And if we in general counsel's office or the open records team ever asks for information from you in order to fulfill a request, please respond as soon as you can. The reason for that is we are on a deadline ourselves to fulfill that request. We have to respond to the request as soon as possible and no later than 10 business days after we received the request. We don't ask why the person wants that information. We just ask for clarification on what they want. And we do that through the open records team. So again, some links for you. And by the way, I believe you've already received these in a packet of information. But if you would like the presentation or any other information after the meeting, please feel free to email me or the advisory board team. And there's also the open records email address at the very bottom of here. So that's it for my presentation. I'm available for any questions that you might have.
I see that Marcel, I think, is wanting to ask a question. Marcel, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I must have missed the video training that we were supposed to have. Was that in an email that you guys sent us?
I believe it was sent out by the advisory board team, but they can resend it for sure.
Please, that would be good. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Molly. If there's no other questions pertaining to the information that Molly provided, let's move on to agenda item E, the approval of minutes. I'm hopeful that each of you have had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting of January 9. Are there any questions relative to the minutes from the last meeting? I'd like to ask for a motion for approval. Scott McDonald has offered a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Stephen
Eddie Martin, second.
Stephen Shang, second, correct? Okay. Anna, do you want to roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Scott McDonald,
Aye.
Edward Martin Jr., Stephen Shang,
Aye.
Marcella Rhodes,
Aye.
Suzanne Arnold,
Aye.
Benoit Kurian,
Aye.
Otis Jones Jr.,
Aye.
Edwin Scooter Lofton Jr.,
Aye.
Johnny Scholl, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't catch that. You're muted. Sir, we have a approval. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item F, public comment. My understanding, there is no public comment in there for this
That's correct,
session.
sir, yes.
That was easy. Moving on to agenda item G, staff reports. Chloe Wayton on the licensing division. Chloe, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Brown and board members. I'm Chloe Whalen, licensing manager for the Industrialized Housing and Manufactured Builders program. And to start with our personnel updates, we had one young lady that has been blessed with a new opportunity that left the team and TDLR on September 14th, and we wished Ms. Garcia well on her new journey. Going down to our statistics. So for the beginning of the new fiscal year for FY21, we have, for manufacturers, there has been 1 new registration, 5 renewals, and we are looking at a total total population of 229 for that particular program. For builders, we've issued 16 renewals. For third-party inspectors, we have renewed 4. And for third-party inspection agencies, we've issued 1 renewal. And for design review agencies, we've issued 1 renewal. That is my report for this meeting. If you have any questions, Chairman, board members, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Council, any questions for Chloe?
Roland, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Finney.
Chloe, could you please tell us, when does the fiscal year begin? Is that starting in July or is that starting in September or
Yes, sir.
October?
That starts September 1st.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chloe, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tuan Nguyen, the Customer Service Division. If you could give us a report, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, advisory board members. My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm the customer service manager for this program. So since the last time we met, our stats did increase a little bit, and we had 2 peak months, March and July. A lot of the inquiries was about information on getting documents for new registrations, website navigation, and we only had about 1 or 2 that was related to checking on their status of their application. The rest of the other calls, usually we would let the customers know to contact IHB Tech about the IHB Tech email, and that way they can get additional help on their actual application processes as well. But other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Nguyen, I find it interesting that most of the inquiries are from calls and not from emails. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes. So for emails, there's an actual direct email that was, I believe it goes to our RPM group. And so for those emails, most of it is sent through there. When people use the web form for customer service on our Contact Us page, if they choose IHB as the program, those emails are also directed over to our RPM team as well.
Very good. Any questions from council? Tuan, thank you very much for your report.
You're welcome.
Enforcement Division, Morgan Cumming.
Good afternoon, Chairman and council members. My name is Morgan Cumming. I am a prosecutor with the Enforcement Division, and I will present the Enforcement Division staff report to you today. First, I have some personnel updates for you. We have had some longtime TDLR folks who have left the agency for their well-earned retirement. On August 31st, Investigations Manager Greg Dotson retired after 22 years of service with TDLR. Greg oversaw the investigation sections within the Enforcement Division, which included 42 investigators. This position is currently posted on the department's website. We hope to conduct interviews soon. On August 31st, Senior Investigator Esmer Aruhu retired after 21 years of service with TDLR. Esmer conducted investigations of cases in the building and mechanical, water well, and property tax programs. On August 31st, Prosecution Legal Assistant Manager Daryl Coons retired after 18 years of service with TDLR. Daryl oversaw the prosecution legal assistance section with Enforcement Division, which included 33 legal assistants and administrative assistants. Now on to promotions. On February 15th, Jackie Revilla was promoted to Legal Assistant Supervisor. Jackie has worked for TDLR for 18 years, previously servicing as a legal assistant and senior legal assistant in the Enforcement Division. Fun fact that's not in your materials, Jackie Revilla has actually recently been promoted to replace Daryl as a legal assistant manager, so she has been promoted twice in 1 year. On February 15th, Debbie Hawkins was promoted to Legal Assistant Supervisor. Debbie has worked for TDLR for 8 years as a legal assistant in the Enforcement Division. On March 1st, John Medlock was promoted to Chief Prosecutor. John has worked for TDLR for 7 years, previously serving as a prosecutor and senior prosecutor in the Enforcement Division. On May 1st, Trevor Thielen was promoted to senior prosecutor. Trevor has worked for TDLR for 9 years as a prosecutor in the Enforcement Division. We would like to congratulate all of these folks on their retirement and promotions. Now I will discuss the statistics derived from the division's regulatory actions for the past fiscal year, so as to provide you with a general overview of the enforcement's activities. 8 cases were open and 17 cases were closed without any final orders being issued, nor any penalties assessed in fiscal year 2020, which began on September 1st, 2019, and ended on August 31st, 2020. The 17 cases were closed as informally resolved. This can mean several things, such as the cases were closed because there was insufficient evidence, or a licensee came into compliance by making necessary repairs, or applicants being granted a license following a criminal history review. The average time to close a case was about 391 days. Almost 24% of the cases were resolved within 6 months. While the case close time is outside the TDLR average of about 158 days, this is due in part to IHB cases taking longer so as to ensure the repairs are properly performed, all in an effort to get voluntary compliance from the respondents and to satisfy the complainants, many of whom have spent large sums of money on homes and buildings. Lastly, we have the sources of cases opened for fiscal year 2020. 13% of cases are opened by the department, 23% were opened due to criminal history, and 62% were opened based on consumer complaints, and this tracks fairly similar to the TDLR average overall. Lastly, the top 4 reasons IHB cases are opened are no registration, construction building codes, criminal activity, and allowing occupancy when not authorized. Does anyone have any questions I may answer?
Unless there are questions, thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Moving along to the agenda item G4, Regulatory Program Management Division, Donna Lipke.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Donna Lipke. I'm the Program Manager for the Industrialized Housing and Building Program. Hopefully the new members received the information that I sent them about the program, and I also sent them a link to the meeting where we did an orientation for new members. So I'm hoping they took an opportunity to watch that and get a feel for how the program works. So personnel updates. Catherine Vaughn retired at the end of January 2020. Catherine was instrumental in developing many of the program forms and procedures as well as the IHB database. Her duties have been reassigned. The building and mechanical section of RPM now has 3 multi-program administrative assistants to complete administrative work for the section, including many duties that Catherine previously handled. And they are currently training to learn how to do all that stuff. So IT is now responsible for the database, and the remainder of Catherine's work responsibilities have been divided among the IB program specialist. For you new members, the IHB team consists of myself, Kelly, who is the lead inspector for the program, Wallace Britton, and Chrissy Cooper, who are 2 of our other inspectors. Chrissy and Wallace are out in the field on inspection right now. Hopefully they're listening to the meeting and watching it on YouTube. So under statistics, I have a little bit less information than previously. I'm just giving you the last couple of years. We're down a little bit fiscal year 20 from fiscal year 19 in the total sold and total revenue. I have a feeling that has to do with basically the last quarter of the year with COVID. Inspections are also down a little bit. And staff inspections, certification inspections have continued. We have managed to use remote video inspections for some portions of certification inspections where we can. There's some things that you can't do remotely with the video inspections. So it's been a challenge to get these done. You can go down, Anna. These are plan reviews approved by third parties. These are the number of plans that were submitted by the third parties in fiscal year 19 and 20. And plans reviewed by staff, these are plans that we've reviewed in preparation for inspections. So, okay, current projects. IT is currently working on an online payment portal. We will be the first program to benefit from this portal, although they plan to expand it to other programs in the future. We're hoping it will be ready to use in early 2021, which means manufacturers will be able to purchase their decals online, make payments for registrations online, all that sort of stuff. We're really looking forward to that. So, we're also working on remote video inspection procedures that can be used to assist in certification inspections of new manufacturers. As I said, we've used some of that already, but we're trying to put those procedures into the actual written form, how and when we can use those procedures, so everybody has an idea of what the rules are for that. Okay, these are the manufacturers certified since the last meeting. Let's see. I think okay. I think there was one other manufacturer that's been certified since then. Actually, there's a couple. If you hold on a moment, let's see.
Epic and Custom Control Solutions.
Epic and Custom Control.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some more. So, and also Seaboard Controls was actually certified in August, not June. I got that date wrong. I'm not sure how. So if you'll go on to the next page. Okay, these are the manufacturer certifications that are in process or scheduled for the future. As you can see, we've actually managed to get quite a few started, and some of them are nearing completion. Some of them we start inspections and we never hear from them again, so I'm not sure what happens with those, but there's a lot of different reasons why they may not be certified yet, even though they started, you know, like this one on the top started, Red Guard started in June of 2019. That's primarily because they haven't taken the time to clear their deviations that were noted during the inspection things that needed to be taken care of. In some cases, manufacturers just don't manage to follow their procedures, so the inspection continues. You could continue on. 100% inspections approved. We've had more requests for 100% inspections because in some cases we weren't able to get out to do certification inspections. So these are the ones that are pending. Where it says ready for label, that H2O and Ronico, that one has already been labeled as in Austin. These other ones are in process, or we're waiting for some revisions to the plans, or we haven't gotten any approved plans yet. So, and go on. I think, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, Scott McDonald.
Yes.
Thank you. Donna, just curious to see, is the program capable of taking care of management now with COVID in line where we need to be in? Should be.
I'd say for the most part, yes. There's still some places we're not supposed to travel to. We have been able to use third parties to assist us inspections. In some cases, we've used third parties to actually be in the plant while we've done our portion remotely. So we lead the inspection, and the third party is our eyes and ears in the plant. So we still have some challenges with our money mail, trying to get decal orders out, but most of that's been caught up at this point. So yeah, I think we're managing that pretty well.
Great job. No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Donna, this is Roland. Did I understand that some of your inspections are being done by video?
Yes, it depends on what we're looking at. Like for integrators, if it's an integrator where all they're doing is electrical and mechanical, what we've done there is we've had a third-party inspector in the plant, and like Kelly or another one of my people will oversee the inspection remotely. Or if we have a certification inspection going on and all we have to see to finish the inspection to say it's tested, we will do that by video. So we're trying to put those procedures into writing so everybody will know exact. The problem is trying to determine what can qualify for remote video, because there's some things that require too much detail that you can't really see very well remotely. So we're trying to come up with some criteria for when we can do that.
And Donna, Scott McDonald, and Roland, I guess for your information, and I don't believe you're part of the subcommittee, we were working on this in April of this year, just trying to work through best practices, what solutions are available. And, we outlined a draft to be able to conduct video inspections and felt fairly comfortable with it.
Okay, good. So at this point, Donna and Kelly, your assessment of utilizing the video for that level of inspection, would you say it's a success? We've got a long way to go. What are your general thoughts?
Kelly, you want to?
Yeah, well, I certainly think that it's not a one size fits all. For what we've been doing, the inspections that we've used it on so far, I think have been very successful, but, you know, it's a minimal amount of construction. It's not, you know, I know we've got some multi-story projects coming up that we would not feel comfortable doing remotely. But for smaller projects, or even just for having to verify, you know, if we noted a deviation, but we weren't there when they corrected it, and they were able to correct it, and we can look at that remotely, it's worked out very well. So then we don't have to make a return visit.
Well, considering departure from what we've all been accustomed to for years, I know it's going to take some evolution, but it sounds like a good report. Donna, anything else on your end?
No. We have the remote video inspection procedures that we came up with on the agenda for you to approve a little bit later on. So I have some more information then when we get to that item. So.
Thank you very much. Any questions on what Donna just covered before we move on to the next item?
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Shang.
Donna, I'm curious to know, with having to travel to multiple states and all that, how's your department been? Has everyone stayed healthy?
Yes, everybody stayed healthy, and we take steps to make sure that where we're traveling has the plant we're visiting. We've come up with a COVID memo, I guess you could say, that they have to agree to follow the guidelines of the CDC, or we're not going to be in the plant. They have to alert us if there's any incidents of COVID in the plant, so we're aware, and that they're taking steps to clean everything and make sure everything's been handled properly. And that has happened in one case. We had one inspection that got postponed because they had an employee test positive for COVID in the manufacturing facility. So we're also being very careful about where we stay. Sometimes we're using something like Airbnb or other. We're taking steps to make sure that where we're staying is cleaned and hasn't been occupied previously for a week or so, or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I forget what the memo says. But yeah.
Well, thank you guys for doing that.
If there's no other questions for Donna, we'll move on to G5, the executive office. Mike Aramendez is going to give us an update there.
Chairman Brown, board members, this is Mike here Mendes. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the department. I'm one of 3 Deputy Executive Directors, and we actually have the other 2 online with us also, Christina Kaiser and David Gonzalez. We provide support to our Executive Director, Brian Francis. So I do want to kind of go through the executive report and let you know a little bit about COVID response. We went back and began to start taking a look and began to start memorializing what we were doing in order to be able to get an idea in the event that this ever comes about again, whether it's a pandemic. And so in mid-March, we sent a lot of our employees home. Currently, we have about 87% of our employees that are work from home. We're in the process right now of developing a plan to return to the office at about 25% after November 1. And we will continue to evaluate the various statistics and rates out in the state of Texas to begin to start the process of looking at when we will begin at phase 2, which will be, of course, definitely down the road. But we want to make sure that we include and are taking into consideration the safety of our employees at all times. So I can tell you that once they all went home, it was a little challenging for us because some of our employees did not have the IT setup at their house, and so we had to provide some equipment for them in order to be able to do that. They took laptops home, systems in order for them to be able to work so that they could continue working from home. I can tell you our IT division did an outstanding job. The amount of requests that they had were numerous. It was probably double what they had the year before from the overall year for the month, but they managed to get our people back up and running. They did a fantastic job. Some things that we did during the COVID response was that we waived CE requirements for individual licensees that expired between the month of March through June that were imposed by TDLR. We also waived some late renewal fees through June 15th. I can tell you that once we began to start seeing numbers start decreasing and knew that we had to begin to start getting and assisting with the governor's office and getting people back to work, we began inspections and investigations. We resumed back up on a very limited basis beginning on June the 10th. And so we worked with the governor's office through this whole process, and we're in constant communication with them. We will continue to do that, and we'll continue to work with them to ensure that we're providing what we need for our licensee base and for the state of Texas and citizens to ensure that we continue to move the state forward and the economy to start moving. I know that we have a long agenda, Chairman, so I'm going to keep moving. If anybody has any questions, feel free just to chime in and ask a question. I'll be more than happy to answer. If not, what I'll do is I'll go on to our strategic planning update. This is a little different for us. COVID kind of provided a different twist on how we're going to be doing our strategic plan. We normally would embark by going out to various cities throughout the state of Texas and trying to get an idea of what people thought we needed to do. We asked various questions. Some of you have been involved in that in the past. Well, COVID kind of changed that for us a little bit. We actually had plans to go out to several cities. We had to scrap all that, and we ended up doing a virtual meeting online for our strat planning. We had a great response from individuals, and so that allowed us to be able to receive input from our licensee base so that we could begin to start developing our strat plan. We finished it first part of June, and in the strat plan, you can go out to our website and you will find all of our list of all the strat plans that we have for the last several years that would kind of let you know what we're doing, but our current strat plan is currently out there. It's ironic because I looked at the strat plans that we have, and the last strat plan that we did 2 years ago, we could focus on Hurricane Harvey because we were just coming out of a hurricane. This strat plan has also a focus of expanding that from a natural disaster now to adding pandemics. So we have included that in our strat plan. We do have several agency goals in our strat plan, and I'll go through them quickly. One is to fully implement and administer the recommendations that are resulting out of the sunset review. And that is one of the agenda items that we have here. And I'm going to bring Christina Kaiser on to talk about that here in just a bit. Also to remove redundancies and eliminating bottlenecks. We're trying to improve efficiencies and decrease the regulatory burdens that we have when we're talking about trying to get licensees out the door. We also want to focus and protect health and safety for all of our licensees. That includes combating human trafficking, which is a big part of what we're now a part of throughout the state of Texas, and also preventing consumer harm. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to position ourselves to be able to respond to the next natural disaster and pandemic or a crisis that might come upon the state of Texas. Of course, we'll continue to streamline and improve our programs that are being transferred to us. As you know, we had approximately 16 programs transfers to us a few years ago, and we're trying to get all that wrapped up and get it moved on, and so that we can be positioned and ready to take on any more if the legislature so chooses. But we're improving those redundancies and trying to get those out of the way so we can continue on. If there's no questions on what I've been speaking about, I would go on into the Sunset Commission staff report, and I've asked Christina Kaiser to bring you up to date on that, and the reason is that she has been tasked by our Executive Director, Brian Francis, to head up our management actions in the Sunset report, and she can give you a very detailed explanation as to what we're doing.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm Christina Kaiser. I'm another of the Deputy Executive Directors here at TDLR. And I'll tell you a little bit about the sunset process. So TDLR has been under review by Sunset Commission staff for about the last year. Sunset review is something that all agencies are subject to on a recurring cycle. Typically it's 12 years. Sometimes it's longer or shorter, depending on what's specified in that agency's law. The point of a sunset review is basically to determine if an agency is still relevant and if they're still adding value to the state of Texas. So TDLR's review began about a year ago. Sunset Commission staff came over and met with TDLR staff for on untold numbers of days. They really immersed themselves into our world to figure out how we do things and to identify any areas of concern that they could see. One of the things that they do in the process is they compare the way TDLR does things with a model that they have for how licensing agencies should be functioning. And so that comparison is something that's reflected in their report. At the end of the staff being immersed in our world for a little while, they prepared a written report. The Sunset staff report was published for all the world to see on June the 4th. And I'll make note that issue 1 in their staff report recommended that TDLR continue in existence. So this is good news, right? So if you get a chance to take a look at the Sunset staff report, you will see that it contains 7 issues that relate to TDLR, and within each issue, there is a narrative section where there's basically discussion of that issue, and then at the end of each issue, there are recommendations listed. And the recommendations come in 2 types. There are recommendations for statutory changes, which might be to TDLR's organic statute, Chapter 51, or might be to any of the program statutes that we administer. And then the second type of recommendations are management action recommendations. These are things that Sunset is basically saying, TDLR, you need to do this different. And it's not something that requires a statute change in order for us to change. It's typically a process type of situation, or in some cases, a policy type of situation. So one of the things I would like you guys to understand is the issuance of the Sunset staff report is by no means the end of the process. In a lot of ways, it's just the beginning of a process. There are several steps that have to happen now. At this point, the report is simply a body of recommendations from the staff of the agency. The next steps that will happen, there will be a public hearing held by the actual Sunset Commission. The Sunset Commission is an agency of the state of Texas. They consist of 5 senators, 5 representatives, and 2 public members. So that body will hold a public hearing about TDLR's sunset report, and members of the public may be invited to attend in person or by video in order to make comment. After the public hearing happens, then there will also be a separate hearing by the Sunset Commission known as the decision hearing. And this is where the Sunset Commission will vote to accept or reject or perhaps modify the recommendations that are made by the Sunset staff in that report, right? Those hearings for TDLR have not been scheduled yet. We expect those to happen between now and January. There was, because of the COVID situation, there have been struggles on the part of the Sunset Commission to figure out a format for holding hearings that will ensure the safety of the participants. They did just hold their first public hearing a few weeks ago on several agencies, of course, not to include TDLR. And so if you want to kind of see how the process is working right now, that is available online to be viewed. So after the Sunset Commission's decision hearing, things still aren't finished though. What happens next is that a bill will be filed in the Texas legislature when they meet next, which starts in January. And the bill will be an effort to pass those statutory changes that are approved by the Sunset Commission. And of course, that bill has to make it all the way through the legislative session and pass for those things to become effective and then binding on TDLR and our regulated industries. So lots of steps still to go, lots of opportunities still for people to have an impact on the process. If you are interested at all in making public comment, you are certainly welcome to do that. On the Sunset Commission's website, there is a form where a member of the public can go in and offer comment on anything they want to related to the TDLR report. So lots of steps still to go. In the meantime, though, we have begun to work on some of those management action recommendations that Sunset provided for us. Some of these things are sort of almost continuations of efforts that we had already begun on our own. And so we're happy to see these recommendations. And we have made actually pretty good progress already on completing some of the ones that were sort of quicker undertakings to complete. One small example is that for each program regulated by TDLR, we have published on the agency's website enforcement statistics specific to that program. So on each program page, you can find enforcement statistics posted in the same place as the enforcement plan is posted. So overall, I feel like our feeling about the Sunset Report is no matter what happens in the legislature, we're going to be a better agency for having gone through this process. We think of ourselves as experts in regulation. We think we do a good job of it, but you never know that for sure until you're tested by some unbiased person coming from the outside and taking a look and trying to poke holes in your process. And so we welcomed this, and we welcome the opportunities to make improvements that were offered to us through this report. I am happy to answer any questions if you have any about that process.
Any questions from the council?
Rollins, Scott McDonald.
Yes, sir.
I guess I would just maybe make a statement and ask clarification on that. But my statement would be is I would encourage all of the board members to participate in the sunset review process and provide comments. And I guess I would just make sure that that statement is an accurate statement.
Mr. McDonald, thank you very much. Yeah, right. And board members to participate as licensees to TDLR. So I'm glad you made that statement. They can continue to go out to our website on the Sunset website, which can be provided to you, but it's also located on our website at tdlr.texas.gov that you can do that with. So thank you for that comment. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and finish off the rest of the report. I do want to mention the anti-trafficking unit. As some of you are aware, last session we received funding to create an anti-trafficking unit within TDLR. On October of last year, in October 2019, we began the hiring process. We hired 8 employees and brought them in and began training with them in January of this year, January 2020. I can tell you that they had 6 weeks of very intense training. And when I'm talking about intense training, it was understanding anti-trafficking, the human trafficking component, moving into our field investigators and field inspectors, going out with investigators, understanding what they do and how they can begin to start plugging into our various other divisions within the agency. They attended 36 training sessions, what they had total. I will let you know that our employees have several collaborations throughout the state of Texas with various law enforcement agencies in helping to fight trafficking in the state of Texas. There are, in collaboration with the governor's office, worked with TABC, the Attorney General's office, the Human Trafficking Prevention Coordinating Council, Children at Risk, Allies Against Slavery, and the list goes on, with some other municipalities also included in that. I can tell you that they were not exempt from the COVID issue. They still had to try to figure out how they can perform their job without going out to locations and looking at inspections, doing investigations, or assisting with that. So what they basically were doing is they just continued to gather research, and they would get complaints, and all of this during limited travel because of COVID. So they've continued to flourish and continue to expand what they do in the human trafficking, the anti-human trafficking world. So we are fortunate to be a part of that and looking at our continued growth in it, and also working with other law enforcement agencies and governmental agencies to help stop human trafficking in Texas. I'll move on to the communication stats. I will let you know that over the last 6 months, beginning in April to about September the 30th, the IHB website has had about a little over 32,000 views on their page for an average of about 177 a day. 71% of those are coming from a desktop computer, 27 are coming from a smartphone, and 2% are coming from a tablet. So just so you know, the top reasons to visit the website, people are looking for the forums and publications. They're looking at registrant list. They want to read the administrative rules. They're also going out to the frequently asked questions to try to get some answers to what they already have. And then they're looking at mandatory building codes. So that's kind of what they're doing out on the IHB website. Mr. Chairman, board members, I'm available for any questions in either the COVID response, the strategic response, the anti-trafficking unit, or any other questions that you might have for exec.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Any questions for Mike?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Very well done. Let's move along to agenda item H, discussion and possible action regarding third-party inspectors, third-party inspection agencies, third-party site inspectors, and design review agencies. Donna Lipke.
Okay, for you new members, all the third parties, agencies, inspectors, and what we call design review agencies that do plan review for the program, they have to meet specific criteria to be approved. We have the ability to grant interim approval, but the council grants the final approval, and that's what we're doing here today. These are 3 individuals that have registered as inspectors. They've met the criteria for approval, and basically they require just require approval from the council at this point.
Motion, Scott McDonald, motion to approve.
Stephen Shane, second.
Motion from Mr. McDonald. Who was the second?
Stephen Shane.
Stephen Shang is seconded. Anna, do you want to do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Scott McDonald,
Yes.
Edward Martin Jr.,
Yes.
Stephen Shang,
Yes.
Marcella Rhodes,
Yes.
Suzanne Arnold,
Yes.
Benoit Courier,
Yes.
Otis Jones,
Yes.
Edwin Scooter Lofton Jr.,
Yes.
Johnny Scholl. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item I, update on rollout of electric plan submittal process. Donna, that's part of yours as well.
Okay, I just wanted to update the council. We finally have a process for submitting plans electronically from the design review agencies. We've got all but one DRA on board with it so far. We just have one last one to get on board. And so far it's working really well. So we will have no more paper records. It's one of the biggest challenges was how they could update these large documents to us. The department has a system for doing that now, and then we're storing all the plans out on our TDLR SharePoint site. And from now on, we'll have the electronic copies and not paper plans. So I was very happy to get that.
Mr. Chair, Scott McDonald, congratulations. I think that's a huge feat, and I know it took a lot of work, so thank you all.
Yeah. And I have to say, Yvonne finally was very instrumental in getting this done, and I really appreciate her for working on this. So.
That is good news. So no concern about storage capacity into the future as we're being able to support this direction.
So far, no. We'll see. We'll see what IT says when we have all the plans coming in that way. So. Roland, you're muted, I think.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
I apologize for that. Let's move along to item J, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding remote video inspection procedures. And Donna, you can continue.
Okay, so we worked with the council work group, the work group that was put together to work on the rule review process to come up with some remote video implant inspection procedures. These are procedures that our third-party inspectors can use for regular implant inspections after a plant's been certified. Basically, the inspection procedures for traditional implant inspections are the same as for remote video inspections, except with some items listed here. So the council basically has purview over the inspection procedures, so we need your final approval on this, or if you want us to make some changes, let us know that. And I can go, if you want, I can briefly go through this, or if you've had a chance to look at it and we don't need to, just let me know that. One thing I should say, I know ICC has come out with some recommendations for this type of inspection, so we're looking at that too. Because what we want to do, like I said during the staff report, we want to incorporate these into our regular inspection procedures. These ones are just for the COVID stuff right now. But we like to incorporate it into the inspection procedures going forward. After this, so at the next meeting, we will have procedures for you to review and approve on that. One of the things I would like some input from the council on. I can talk about that more, but let's look at the ones we have for remote video for during COVID first, and then I can talk about the concerns we have going forward. Any questions on these procedures, or do you want me to go through them, or what?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, is that okay?
That's good, Stephen.
Yeah, so Roland and I participate in this organization called the Modular Building Institute. It's an international group, looks at different modular programs and all that. And I'll say, Texas is ahead, I think, as far as the states are concerned, and kind of really rolling this out, adopting it, and actually using it. So, Donna, great job to you and your team on that. we're way ahead of California.
So either I can go through the procedures with you, the differences, or you can vote to make a motion to accept or not accept these procedures.
I leave that up for discussion. I am comfortable with it. But I open it up to the rest of the members of the council to where if they want to go through it section by section, or if they have specific questions. I'm awaiting direction from people's opinions based on what their experience is or was whenever they read the document.
I'm comfortable as well, Roland.
Okay, Stephen is comfortable. I would like to ask one question that came to mind when I read it. And under 1.21, it says both manufacturers and third-party inspectors shall have the capability to allow inspections by secure electronic video methods as approved by the IHB program. Is that approval process? Is it a formal approval process as far as the methods? Have there been discussions on that? Is that purely a case-by-case basis? Is it possible to define what was meant by methods as approved by the IHB program a little better?
We didn't want to put specific methods in here. We wanted to leave it open as new methods might come up. Basically, it's just a matter of if you have a process that hasn't been used before, letting us know. We would have it verified by our IT people that it is a secure method before moving forward. That's the main thing, is making sure everything is secure. You know, like Zoom had some problems initially, they've corrected those. So Zoom is one way that those inspections could be done now.
Mr. Chair, Scott McDonald, and serving on the committee, as we walked through this, that was one of those points of conversation that we had, not knowing what would be the latest and greatest and what we're using. And I think Donna's point is very valid. So the approval process is really just the program and program staff verifying that it's a good method to do it, just leaving the flexibility. And much like Stephen, I don't know if Stephen's note was at first, I'm happy to second it. And then if we have to open up any discussion or if anybody wants to do anything, just at least to get that on the table.
I'll accept these and your second. Open for discussion if anyone feels it necessary. Seeing no one raising their hand, I would like to suggest that Anna do a roll call vote.
Scott McDonald,
Support.
Edward Martin Jr.,
Support.
Stephen Shang,
Aye.
Marcella Rhodes,
Aye.
Suzanne Arnold,
Aye.
Benoit Curian,
Aye.
Otis Jones Jr.,
Move forward.
Edwin Skeeter Lofton Jr.,
Aye.
Johnny Scholl. The motion passes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Okay, before we go on to the next item, one of the items that I was trying to figure out is on frequency of inspections, how often there could be an RVI inspection in a plant, if there should be a minimum number of in-person inspections in plants. Do we want to put a limit on, do we want them to allow them to do every inspection RVI, or do we want to say every so many inspections? I'd kind of like some feedback from the council.
Mr. Chair, Scott McDonald.
Scott, you're recognized.
I think I'd leave that up to the program. I mean, ultimately, staff is responsible for managing this. So for me, I think that Obviously, depending on the numbers and what you're doing and what that frequency needs to be, I think we trust program staff to be able to manage that. And we obviously can scrutinize that at a later date if needed.
Well, that's why what we're going to do is we're going to be putting some procedures. We're going to be writing some procedures for ongoing. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for what the board might think. You know, if they have a lot of inspections, maybe it's every third or fourth inspection or whatever. If they don't have them very often, they might be every other inspection or something. Stephen,
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Donna, I definitely agree with Scott on that. It seems like you guys, there's so many intangibles when you go into inspect a plant, like whether it's clean and how things are looking or how things are feeling. I would really leave that to the purview of the inspector on how often you feel like the video inspection is appropriate and at what time should you go back in and see what's happening.
okay.
Mr. Chair.
We can discuss this some more in the work group too.
And to piggyback on that, I think rather than having it regimented, I think there's utility in the fact that if they don't know when it is an inspector may be coming, you're leaving all of that open. So I'd like the program to have the flexibility to be able to do what they need to do.
Okay.
This is Roland. My comment from a manufacturing standpoint is that I would not want to rely too much on the video inspection. Some of the points that Scott had made, for example, it's very hard to get the full understanding of the activities, the organization, the management, if you will, the decision-making capabilities on the shop floor by just doing it by video. I support the video inspections, but I think going in initially, we need not to jump into that pool too quickly. So I would exercise caution in how we evolve. We've got to learn to make sure that we're covering all the bases with the video, in which my fear is that you can't replace the boots on the ground, if you will, or on the shop floor.
I
Yes.
agree with that.
Go ahead, Marcella.
I concur. I'm an inspector, and with precaution, with my mask, with gloves, I think a physical inspection is much better. I've done it both ways, and it definitely makes a big difference. So I concur that we shouldn't just limit it to video. There should at least be one physical inspection. I mean, in person.
Just for your information also, since we instituted these procedures back in April, there's actually the notification for inspections. Third parties let us know when they're going to be in a plant to do inspection. We asked them that they tell us if they're going to do it by remote video, and there have only been 6 third-party inspections done that way. So out of, I forget how many we said we had for last fiscal year, but that's not very many out of the total number of inspections that were performed by third parties. So
Thank you, Doc. I think we still have an active motion and a second.
no, it's been voted on.
Correction. I'm sorry, Donna.
I think it's been voted on already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So we're moving on to item K. Update on rule review process, including possible amendments to 16 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 70. Molly, Fudel, and Don.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Donna and I wanted to give you a brief update on this. I talked a little bit about a 4-year rule review during the training earlier. For the new members, we are in the middle of a 4-year rule review. The rules were already adopted, and now we are
Lily's Rose.
and then we're also looking at the substance of them as well. So we work on this in the midst of our other duties as we can, and occasionally we check in with a council work group to get your feedback as well. We don't have a final draft ready for you yet, but when we do, we will bring it to you, and it'll go through the whole rule adoption process with publication and getting that the public comment. So I'll turn that over to Donna now.
Okay. Just so you know, because of COVID, we're a little bit behind in our meetings on these rules. We are planning on meetings in the upcoming months because my goal right now is to have a document for you come January or February, whenever the next meeting is. Some of the change, a lot of what we're doing is just reorganizing, moving things to where they probably should have been to begin with. For example, there's requirements for plan reviews throughout the rules in different sections. We're moving all that into one section. We're removing duplicative stuff in the rules. For instance, the rule on registration for third parties will say they will file an application with the fee to register, and then the criteria for approval says the same thing. So you don't need that in there twice. We've added some definitions to clarify things. We've got rid of some definitions. The electronic plan submittal process has made things easier for me on rewriting Rule 7070, which has to do with plan reviews and approvals of plans. So that rule is getting a total rewrite. Does anybody have? Can they ask questions on this, or is it just a update, Molly?
Sure. Yes. Questions are fine.
If anybody has any questions about what we're doing, or if anybody has some things they'd like us to consider in the rules, let us know. You can either let us know now, or you can send us an email. However you want to let us know what you think needs to be changed in those rules, please let us know.
Okay, any comments from council on that item? Okay, let's move on to agenda item L, discussion and possible recommendation to proceed with the adoption of the 2018 International Codes and the 2020 NEC, or wait for the publication of 2021 International Codes.
So the 2021 International Codes are all out now. However, the ICC also publishes documents that point out the differences between different code editions. And I have the ones between the 2015 and 2018 ones on order so we can see what the major changes are. However, the changes between 2018 and 2021, I'm not sure when those will be ready, when ICC will have those ready. So that's one drawback to waiting for 2021. We would have to wait a while. The other thing is that the Energy Systems Laboratory has already reviewed the 2018 Energy Code, and they were found it to be more stringent, or as stringent as the 2015 International Energy Code. So we are okay to go ahead with the adoption of that, but I don't think we are okay yet to go ahead with the adoption of 2021 until they until they have a chance to do their analysis. They have 6 months. The Energy Systems Laboratory has 6 months to conduct an analysis of that energy code and determine if it's equivalent or more stringent than the previous codes. I believe the earliest that SECO, which is the State Energy Conservation Office, can adopt a new energy code is 2022. So if we go ahead with the 2018 now, then 2020 and 2022 is when you'd probably want to look at adopting 21 codes. And that's basically all I have, is just finding out what you guys want to do. If you want to go forward with the adoption of the 2018 codes, or wait for the 2021.
Council members who want to speak. I'll start with Scott. We'll move to Stephen Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott McDonald. Donna, I understand what it is that you just indicated. I know that the plumbing, mechanical, fuel gas 2021 codes are published currently. This month, effectively, the other codes are supposed to roll out. And I think over the course of probably the next 60 days, or by the end of the year, they intend on having the significant change documents out. I would advocate by the time that we put together a subcommittee and to begin reviewing the codes, it will be 2021. And so we wouldn't be taking any action until 21, sometime in late 21, if not 22. That puts us 3 years behind on a code cycle. I would advocate for reviewing the 2021 codes, and even if it takes a couple months longer to do that, and then we mirror what the state energy code is doing, and even if that's taking an older version of the energy code or our current version of the energy code, is that we have the most current building codes in place, and that will tie nicely with how it is that the National Electric Code is adopted. So being just as most current as possible and trying to rely with other programs within TDLR would make the most sense to me. That's just my 2 cents.
Sorry, I kept hitting my button and it's pretty slow. Stephen, please go ahead.
Thanks, Roland. Scott, yeah, I agree with that wisdom. That seems to make sense, but I would throw another consideration out there, which is to say that it seems like a lot of the state program codes need to kind of cooperate with the local codes where the structure is being built. And I'm just curious, as we kind of survey the major metro areas of Texas, are people in these different areas looking to advance to 2021, or are they mostly on 2018 and 2015?
And Stephen, if that's a question, I'll give you a partial on that.
Please, yeah.
I can tell you in the DFW Metroplex, it was reviewing and going through the 2018s because 2021s were not published. I can tell you some of the trends that have occurred over the past really have dealt with the energy code and going to 6-year code cycles. But again, making that change, there's just an expense involved for, I think, the department, as well as the timing that it takes for us to go through the code review process and then get it adopted, that it's going to take us easily a year or longer. And by that time, I think that most of the municipalities will be looking at the 2021s for adopting the 2021s. So where it is that we're currently behind in code adoption, we might be in line with other municipalities. Again, technology is evolving pretty quickly. And I think even with COVID, where it is, we're going to see an awful lot of changes with mechanical systems. And when we talk about fresh air intake and ventilation, it just seems to me that we at least start in the path of exploring those. And again, if we had to take a step backwards and go to the 2018s for some reason, as we get months into this, it just seems like it would be energy that would be well spent.
And Donna, thank you for the answer, Scott. Donna, I guess my question from what Scott's saying, we're not looking as a state to adopt the code, just the 2018 or 2021 carte blanche. We're going to add amendments to it, or does the state not do that?
We will have amendments, but they'll be mostly administrative, and most of them will be administrative type amendments to align with our policies and procedures, which are a little bit different from cities. So we have Rule 70.101 is all our current, and if you look at that, you'll see it's mostly administrative.
And Stephen, I'm sorry, one more piece from me. I'll tell you that City of Denton will be looking at the 2021s. We're already begun the review of plumbing, mechanical, fuel gas. So we intend to go into the 2021s.
Johnny, you have the floor. If we're not stepping on Stephen, I apologize.
I'm not hearing Johnny at all.
Yeah, nor am I.
No, sir.
if you can hear us, we're not hearing you.
Mr. Show, we do not have audio on you. We would like to get Mary Winston, TDLR. We would like to get his input definitely. We are seeing if someone in the office can give him a call so that we can at least have audio on the phone as well as video through this platform. Presiding Officer Brown, if you want to move forward with other comments until we can get Mr. Scholl in.
Okay, feel free to break in once you make contact. Stephen, I think you were thinking about adding to the comment.
Mr. Chair?
Were you calling on me, Roland?
Yeah, I thought that you, I felt I cut you off a moment ago. I apologize.
I mean, yeah, I appreciate what Scott's saying about City of Denton, and I think you're right. I mean, if we're in lockstep, or at least close to being lockstep with the cities, that's going to make the jobs of a lot of the modular players much easier to comply with one set of codes as opposed to two. The only other concern, though, and I think we've talked about this in previous meetings, is that if we leapfrog a code, it may cause a price jump for the modular units that might turn the market off, and that's just something we should consider as a council as well.
Yes, Stephen, that's typical of the line that I say, isn't it? I like where Scott is coming from. I'm always the first voice to say I don't like skipping code additions. There's so much catching up to do. There's sometimes a gap here or there that if you don't read the code that you're skipping, that you don't really know the intent of what's happening. But the more recent codes, as far as the modular world, none of the neighboring states to Texas have recognized 2020 yet, to my knowledge, to my experience. But Scott makes a good point, considering the 180-day notice that we have to give, considering the reviews that we have to do, and the amendments that we have to put into it. We're over a year from this being enacted anyway. So from that standpoint, I think I would lean more towards jumping to the 2021 edition. And I can't believe I just said that. Have we made contact with Mr. Skoll yet?
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say that I agree with Scott. The amount of time it takes to go through a code cycle change takes quite a while. We're currently doing that here in Amarillo, going to the 18s. We started back in June, and we might be halfway through. And that's all I had to say.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Curran, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Council. So just with my experience too, I do agree with what Scott said, but as far as dealing with a lot of the state modular programs and stuff, like the Chairman said, I'm not aware of any that switched to 2021. What we're seeing right now is there's a few that have gone to the 2018 just very recently. So I guess I'm just curious on the timeline. If we jump to the 2021, are we talking about a couple years? Because if we're talking about sooner, it might be really difficult for a lot of the modular manufacturers to kind of adjust jumping that code cycle. It's just my concern.
I can address that. We have to post the rules, write the rules, and we determine what the amendments are, which is that works on that. And then once the council decides to go ahead with that, and actually adopts the codes, it's at least 180 days before they go into effect. So you're looking at least a year and a half before they're adopted, or before they're effective.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Scott McDonald again, and just to help with Mr. Curran, Donna had indicated that they had already ordered the significant changes from the 2015 to the 2018. So part of the committee's process is to evaluate the difference of the code in which we're currently under, and then the code that we would be proposing to go to. But because the length of the process, I know when we went through this previously, we were skipping code cycles. So it's how it is that we clean up the skipping of code cycle, or it was how long it took to go through the process. So if we complete the process in 2021 and the 2021s are out, it takes 3 years to develop the model code. So the 2021 code that's going to hit the street today started 3 years ago. So that technology is really somewhat old. I will also say that in analyzing that, many times there are elements removed from the code that a manufacturer may not have to do, or alternative methods or materials that they can use. So sometimes there's advantages. We always look at code adoptions as being punitive. And that's what the history has been with energy codes. So the value in evaluating those codes over the course of the next year may provide more benefit than loss. Or we may find that we may not want to do that. But again, it's the look at the most current possible, and then we can look at those significant changes between the 15 to the 18, and then the 18 to the 21.
Thank you, Scott. Any additional discussion on this?
I just have one thing. Do we want to use the same work group that's working on the rule review process for getting these code changes, or do we want to have a different work group? I think it's easier to use the same work group, but it's up to you guys, up to you as the council.
Who's on the work group right now, Donna?
Well, actually, we lost a member because Doug is no longer on the council. But right now, it's you, Stephen, Scott McDonald. I think Roland's on there, and Dub Smith is on there. I think that's it right now. Those four. And Doug Robinson was on it, but he's no longer on the council.
I still think that's a good group. I think since Doug Robinson is no longer on the council, that opens up a seat if there's a volunteer.
I think Suzanne would be fantastic.
Hey, the pay is great. David tells me the check's in the mail every year.
And none of the meetings are in person, so I don't know. Maybe we need an engineer in that group.
Mr. Chair.
And being raised.
Mr. Chair, I'll volunteer.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the group. Okay.
That was Johnny, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Okay, that's it. I think that's it for that item then.
So we're not going to vote on that. We're just going to let the committee meet, and we'll have a status report the next meeting. Is that correct?
Assuming the significant change documents come out for the 2018 to 2021 codes, yes, that's the plan.
Yeah. So we really cannot establish any dates until we know when those documents are available, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we will table that one for a future meeting. Are we ready to move on to item M? Update on International Code Offsite and Modular Construction Development, Modular Building Code Standards, And Kelly is part of that committee, which we sincerely appreciate. So Kelly, tell us what's going on.
Okay, so I thought I'd take a minute just to explain, because I know we have new council members, and welcome, by the way. So I thought I'd take a minute just to explain the purpose for creating the Offsite Modular Construction Standard Committee, to create national standards that provide minimum requirements for safeguarding public health and addressing industry challenges and multiple facets of the offsite construction process. These standards are intended to be used by government agencies and organizations if they choose to adopt these standards for use in conjunction with model building codes to achieve uniformity. And what's meant by offsite construction processes as it pertains to these standards is a modular building or component which is designed and constructed in a manufacturing facility for installation or assembly and installation on a building site, and has been manufactured in such a manner that all or parts cannot be inspected at the installation site without disassembly, damage, or destruction. So we had our first meeting, our first in-person meeting in November of last year, and during this meeting we broke up into several work groups and began working on various topics or items that will be included in two standards, which are ICC 1200 and ICC 1205. After several work groups and committee meetings, we were able to put together a rough draft of these standards. It was published in ICC's website August 14th, 2020, for the first go around in public input. At this time, we're currently reviewing the public comments to see if we need to incorporate any of these changes or additions. And I believe a second draft will be posted again for public comment sometime in December. The plan is to have these standards published and readily available by September 2021. If anyone has any questions or would like to see what these standards look like, just let us know and we can provide a link to the ICC's website where the initial drafts are posted. Our meetings and work groups are also open to the public, so if anyone is interested in sitting in on these meetings or would like to be part of this work group, just you can find this information by going to the same link as well. Any questions?
Kelly, I just I would like to say thank you. As Stephen Shank said, he and I both are heavily involved with the Modular Building Institute. The Texas program has been used as an example many years ago, involved with helping Louisiana get started with their program. There's a lot of common language between the two because they started with the state of Texas documents. And it's a very good program here in the state of Texas. We heavily support it. And we feel that more people who understand this type of regulatory program enhances the future opportunities for modular construction, which in my 40-year career has really grown leaps and bounds. So appreciate you being part of that, and I look forward to the results.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments to that, let's move on to item N, election of new chair and vice chair. So
well, Roland,
for suggestions for nominees.
Scott McDonald here. I think Roland does a fine job. He's rolling off in February of 2021. So I nominate Roland as chair, if he'll so accept.
I second.
Well, I think the key point there, and I will accept, but that Scott is correct. I have been on this council now for 10 years. It's been 10 wonderful years. And no, I didn't where I started. And governor's appointment is clear that I cannot be reappointed. And they've said that a couple of times over the last 10 years. I think this time they're really serious. So beyond the appointment cycle with the governor's appointment office, we don't know when that's going to be. I cannot be appointed. So we're going to have to be on our toes to make sure that there's a succession behind me, but I'll accept for the interim. Well, with that being out there, I guess we need to do a vote on that. Anna, I assume we require a vote?
Yes, sir. Scott McDonald,
Aye.
Edward Martin Jr.,
Aye.
Stephen Shang,
Aye.
Marcella Rhodes, Suzanne Arnold,
Aye.
Benoit Curian,
Aye.
Otis Jones,
Aye.
Edwin Scooter Lofton Jr.,
Aye.
Johnny Scholl.
Aye.
Motion passes, sir.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for your support. Now I would like to open up the floor for nominees for vice chair. And since Scott was so nice to volunteer me, I would like to suggest that Scott McDonald continue in that capacity, assuming, I think, Scott, there's a possibility that the appointment office may run you off pretty soon too. I'm not sure what they're telling you.
I'm hearing the same thing as you, so we'll come up with a succession plan.
There you go.
Well, I will second Scott.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, we're ready for a vote. Go ahead,
Scott
Anna.
McDonald,
Aye.
Edward Martin Jr.,
Aye.
Stephen Shang,
Aye.
Marcella Rhodes,
Aye.
Suzanne Arnold,
Aye.
Benoit Curian,
Aye.
Otis Jones,
Aye.
Edwin Scooter Lofton Jr.,
Aye.
and Johnny Scholl.
Aye.
The motion passes, sir.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks, Scott. It's been an enjoyable trip. I'm glad it's continuing. Recommendations for agenda items for the next advisory board meeting.
Mr. Brown, before we move forward, this is Mary Winston, PDLR. We do have some new members on the council, and I just wanted to make sure you maybe gave their names out, call them out for this first meeting that they're attending.
Okay, Benoit Curran, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Benoit Curian. I work for Powell Electrical Systems here in Houston, Texas. I guess I'm a Houston boy. I went to high school here in Houston and went to the University of Houston. Came here right after University of Houston. Has been at Powell for 25 years now. Started off with electrical engineering, designing electrical switchgear, and moved into our building design. Did that for a while. Until Powell got involved in a lot of the code issues. And so my role here is now the code compliance manager, and I actually deal with a lot of the different state agencies and getting us code compliant with them and registered with the state agency. So I have had a lot of dealings with TDLR and with Donna. Appreciate all their help.
Thank you, sir. Johnny Scholl, tell us about yourself.
I got a plumbing mechanical background. I got my plumbing license when I was 16. I started out as inspector for the city of Amarillo, and now I'm a deputy building official. I worked with Scott before, so it's good to see a familiar face.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
I'm making horrible comments about Scott. You guys are missing out on it. No, Johnny, thank you very much. Thanks for being part of the group. Otis Jones. Otis, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
How you doing? I'm born and raised in Houston, Texas. Grew up here basically all my life. Went to school at Texas A&M in College Station. Came back to Houston and started as a structural engineer. So my background is in building design. I've been a practicing engineer for 13 years. Pretty well versed in all municipal color line. So hoping to bring my expertise to the board and see where I can help out.
Mr. Chair might have froze up on us.
I think he did. This is Mary Winston, TDLR. We tempted fate just for 2 minutes too long. That's what happened here with the technical issues. Hopefully, we're going to try to get Mr. Brown back on the call. We have made it down. I interrupted him just before we went to agenda item O, recommendation for agenda items for next council meeting. And Mr. McDonald, if you could, as vice chair, wrap up the meeting for us.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
we
I
had
think-
one other new board member to introduce.
Oh, I'm
Peter
sorry.
Lofton.
I'm sorry. Well, Mr. McDonald, take over those introductions. Thank you.
Absolutely. And well, and Roland's back, but Mr. Loft, if you could go through it, please.
I thought I was going to be able to get out of that one, so too bad.
No, sir.
Yeah, I grew up in Austin. We moved to Houston, which is where I said I would never live, but I lived there for 22 years. I worked for a civil engineering firm, RG Miller Engineers. I was the site rep, so I was out in the field doing development. And as soon as we got the kids off to college, we came back home to we live in Horseshoe Bay, Texas, and so I'm building homes and remodels in and around Central Texas, Dripping Springs, Lago Vista, Horseshoe Bay, Kingsland, that thing. So I'm honored to be here with you guys, and for you guys have been working here for 10 years. Thanks for your service.
Well, thank you for agreeing to serve, and you know, it's a great opportunity for me to take the meeting over while Roland's not here. I was going to ask the question, and ultimately, I think I have to ask it of staff. But you know, we've had a couple of board members drop off, and to the point on years of service. If there's a resolution or anything that we can do to acknowledge those individuals, I think would be useful. So I guess I asked staff if that's a possibility. I can tell you, you know. To Roland's point on the governor's office making statements of that you can't be reappointed, and here we are continuing to serve. So I'm here for whatever the ride is until my next endeavor, that I'm going to be David Gonzalez's boss. So when I'm on the TDLR board, I'm going to straighten some of this out. So just know it's coming, David. But I guess I asked staff, is there something we can do as far as resolution and Roland's commitment to the organization and everything?
Mr. McDonald, Mary Winston here. That's a fantastic suggestion, and we will keep you posted.
Okay, very good. And Roland can't get in on the meeting, so he doesn't know anything about it. So I think it's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
So that'll take me to the next item on the agenda. Or I guess let me ask if there's any other items that any of the board members would like to discuss for the next meeting. Anything from staff that you'd like to have on the agenda for the next meeting?
Well, we want to bring back, like I said, we want to roll out the rules that we're about 75% finished with the rule review process. So we want to get that to the work group and get their take on it and finalize that and bring that back. So we can go to so it can be submitted for proposal for the Texas Register at the next meeting. And the other thing would be incorporate some of the RBI procedures into our regular inspections. So we're going to be rewriting inspection procedures also and bringing those back for you guys to look at. And I guess we'll keep you updated too on what's happening with the code, the 2021 code. That's all I have.
And I guess I might note again, and I believe you have the information, but if there's benefit in having Kelly Sadler, which is our government relations representative from ICC, be a part of the meeting, I'm certain that she'd be happy to present and talk about that. And ultimately, if we needed to get someone that wanted to talk, you know, briefly about what some of those changes are, We can certainly arrange that, Donna, if you'd like it.
I've already been in contact with her about that, and that's fine.
Okay. Mr. Chair, are you back? I don't think he is. So as far as date, time, and location for our next council meeting, I would make the assumption that we're probably going to continue at this point to be virtual. So going on that assumption that we'll say it is a virtual meeting, and then it's the date and time.
And I'm hoping we can have our next meeting in January, February, before this next legislative session really rolls out and gets started. Because I know our executive office doesn't like to have meetings once session has really begun.
So is it safe to assume then staff would probably send out a poll for the board members, and maybe we would start that process in January?
Yes, Mary Winston, we will, Anna will poll the board. And thank you, Donna, for a suggested time frame, because session is coming up. And during that time frame, as our boss likes to say, we go skinny on these meetings because we're handling matters at the Capitol.
Very good. Well, and I guess I'll throw one last call out there for the good of the order. Any of the board or staff have any other items that they'd like to bring up? If not, then I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
Stephen? Seconded by Johnny.
Seconded by Johnny Scholl.
Very good. Anna?
Should we take a roll call vote? Scott McDonald,
Aye.
Edward Martin,
Aye.
Stephen Sheng,
Aye.
Marcella Rhodes,
Aye.
Suzanne Arnold,
Aye.
Benoit Curian,
Aye.
Otis Jones,
Aye.
Scooter Lofton,
Aye.
Johnny Schultz.
Aye.
Motion passes, sir.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your service.
Motion passes,
and
sir.
hope you stay healthy and have a great rest of your day.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. Good to meet the members. Bye.
Have a good one.